Recognizing the member for Surrey Cloverdale.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Now more than ever, with inflationary pressures on small business, we need to respond to the needs that they have. And before I move over, and I'm hoping my voice can manage to get through this, I'd like to speak about what our government has been able to do for small business over the past few years. Madam Speaker, when the pandemic hit British Columbia, our government was there for small business, and I'm pretty sure there's stories in other ridings across the province. And I'd like to highlight a few of the small business stories that were there in Surrey Cloverdale, which I imagine will also apply to other areas across the province. When the COVID business grants were announced, there was an opportunity for accountants to assist small business with their application process. And I can tell you, Honourable Speaker, that the accountants that we had that were trained definitely made a difference for small businesses who were somewhat afraid of the bureaucratic nightmare of filling out applications. I know I've filled out a number of them, and it's not a business that I'm comfortable with. With these accountants in place, there was over $2 million provided to the small business owners in my riding. Some grants were as small as a few $1,000s that were delivered to some of the taxi owners. And there was also grants of tens of thousands of dollars to some restaurateurs who were attached to the tourism industry. But, Honourable Speaker, the grant that really got my eyebrows was a grant provided to the horse racing industry, of which in my riding there's a harness racing track. And Fraser Downs, through this grant, was able to keep the industry afloat at a time when they were struggling the most. This may not come across as significant to some, but the amount of jobs that were there that were affected were great. We're talking about 120 direct jobs, and some of those jobs are not the most highly skilled jobs that we have out there. They're wages that are being paid sometimes at a minimum rate, but those people were kept working during that time, and the ancillary jobs of other places that were around there, whether or not that was the local veterinarians, the local feed places, and the other transportation people that were there. It was able to keep their season open at a time where owners were just simply shipping their horses down south, and so go the jobs. The COVID business grants were as significant to the small businesses and owners and employees as was the MSP eliminations in 2020. Now, in 2024, we see the employer health tax threshold change. This change comes from government hearing small businesses who are asking for assistance. Last spring, the Select Standing Committee on Finance and Government Services listened to various business organizations who had asked for the thresholds to be changed. The report on the Budget 2024 consultations recommended to the Finance Ministry to look at those thresholds for small businesses to address the impacts related to rising wages and inflation. Changes to the thresholds were identified, and recommendation from the committee to look at the thresholds has led to the recent changes. The 2024-25 budget has addressed what we heard and what changes were made. And Honourable Chair, I think it's important at this point, and there are members on the other side that sat on this committee, and it's important to say that, out of the 375 presentations that were given to us, that we heard it loud and clear, and government heard it loud and clear, and the recommendations that were put forward were acted upon for those small businesses that were there. These changes are estimated to save businesses more than $100 million annually. Now we are supporting the success of small and mid-sized businesses by increasing the threshold for their employer health tax. We've heard from the calls from the business community to allow small and medium business to hire more before they have to pay the employer health tax. We're doubling the exemption on the threshold from $500,000 to $1 million, effective immediately. And payrolls, businesses with payrolls between $1 million and $1.5 million will continue to partially be exempt and will pay less. So what does this mean? 90% of businesses will now be exempt from the employer health tax, which is up from 85% under the current rules that were there. This additional 5% increase actually applies to over 9,000 businesses in BC. And as far as the other part of the exemption, where they reduce their tax that they're paying, and that is 2% of all businesses that are out there, which equates to another 4,100 businesses will see a reduced payroll tax bill. BC's EHT rate is at 1.95%, and it's tied to the lowest and now meeting the same exemption threshold as Ontario. Not-for-profit and charitable organizations will continue to benefit from higher exemption and the full rate threshold, as well as special rules for locations. Honourable Speaker, we're going to continue to support growing businesses while improving health care for all people in British Columbia. I have an exercise in math, and I do believe, if I'm going to speculate, the MLA for Caribou-Chilcotin is going to respond. So at this point, I'll let my voice have a rest, and if he wants to sharpen his pencil for my math, I look forward to his comments. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.